With Trump's trade war sending markets tumbling, it looks like Justin Trudeau just figured out a way to play him. He took to Twitter writing, "Just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-US joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I've also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together." And of course, Trump and his Republican mouthpieces will beat their chests about this huge win, which might actually carry some weight, if this deal hadn't already been announced in December of 2024. According to reporting from then, federal government unveils Canada's border security plan December 17th, 2024. Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs, holds a news conference on Parliament Hill to outline the federal government's new $1.3 billion border security plan. The new plan aims to strengthen border security and improve the immigration system while also contributing to Canada's economic prosperity. It is built around 5 pillars: addressing the fentanyl trade, bringing in new law enforcement tools, improving operational coordination, expanding information sharing, and reducing unnecessary border volumes. Incoming U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 25% import tariff on all products from Canada and Mexico if the two countries fail to curb the flow of migrants and drugs, particularly fentanyl, across their borders. In other words, big win for Trump by securing a deal that was already secured even before he took the oath of office. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the art of the deal. Here's Caitlin Collins also pointing out that publicly.
Now we've just gotten this announcement from Trudeau himself, who I should note got out ahead of the White House in this. He said he had a good call with Trump. He said that Canada is going to be implementing a $1.3 billion border plan where they talk about reinforcing the border. I should note that's actually something that Trudeau announced and Canada announced back in December, about mid-December. But also in this announcement, Jake, he says that they are going to have frontline personnel working and protecting the border after concerns about fentanyl coming across. And he said that they are going to be appointing a fentanyl czar and that they will list cartels as terrorists and ensure 24/7 eyes on the border. I believe it is the fentanyl czar that is new here, but it's that last sentence, Jake, there at the end is the most important here. He says, proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together.
In fact, based on Trudeau's tweet, the only thing that Trudeau relented on for Trump was a joint strike force and a fentanyl czar. And look, Canada's a great partner, our closest ally, and if we're going to do a joint strike force for fentanyl, fantastic. But the notion that we needed to bring us to the brink of economic catastrophe, also that Canada would name a fentanyl czar, is a joke. And if Trump thinks that it's some huge victory for him, then I would offer that perhaps this guy doesn't really know what it looks like to win a negotiation. And the irony of all of this, hardly any fentanyl comes into the United States from Canada. Only 0.2% of fentanyl seizures enter the U.S. from that country. 43 pounds in total. All of this for enough fentanyl to, fit in one suitcase? And yes, that amount of fentanyl can obviously harm a lot of people, but what are we doing here? We're about to tank the U.S. economy and alienate our closest trading partner over 0.2% of the fentanyl coming into the United States? Let's get real. In reality, the winners here are the Canadians, who were able to get this master negotiator, Donald Trump, to relent on his disastrous trade war, at least for 30 days. And the way that they were able to do that, very likely, was because they were strategic about how they were going to apply their own retaliatory tariffs. And that was by targeting their tariffs to exact the most pain on red states. Here, for example, is British Columbia's premier imploring his constituents to do exactly that.
For our first of many steps, effective today, I have directed BC liquor sales to immediately stop buying American liquor from red states. Liquor store employees will be removing the most popular of these brands from government store shelves.
And Mexico was game too. According to Reuters, Mexican officials were looking at retaliatory tariffs focused on, you guessed it, red states. The retaliatory tariffs would most likely be on pork products, cheese, apples, grapes, potatoes, cranberries, and bourbon whiskey, as well as manufactured steel and aluminum, the sources said. Mexico has chosen the products because they have a big impact on regions that voted overwhelmingly for Trump. In other words, we now had two countries, Canada and Mexico, that were aligned on seeking to exact maximum political pain from those who are most closely allied with Trump. which is especially smart because they know full well that the 2024 election was a referendum on high prices. And don't take my word for it, by the way, take Trump's.
I won on two things, the border, and more than immigration. You know, they like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, you know, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
So presumably, Trump supporters care about high costs, and those people specifically were the ones who were being targeted by Mexico and Canada. So if you're looking for the art of the deal here, it certainly was present in these negotiations. It's just that Trump had nothing to do with it. And what's worse, it's going to be increasingly difficult even for right-wing media to explain this away. Take a look at this brutal scroll, for example, from Fox News that appeared on screen, outlining all of the items that would have been impacted by a trade war. We're talking about everything from food to clothing, building supplies, cars, alcohol, lumber, shoes, gas, energy. Effectively, every facet of American life would have been impacted had these tariffs gone into effect. Let's not pretend for a minute that Trump and his team weren't well aware of that fact. Or how about this headline from Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal? The dumbest trade war in history. Look, when Fox News is running a scrolling list of food, alcohol, lumber, steel, shoes, all of which are going to be more expensive, when the Wall Street Journal is calling it the dumbest trade war in history, then clearly this wasn't going as smoothly as Trump expected, which probably explains this cleanup effort. Trump took to Truth Social, writing, "Anybody that's against tariffs, including the fake news, Wall Street Journal, and hedge funds, are only against them because these people or entities are controlled by China or any other foreign or domestic companies. Anybody that loves and believes in the United States of America is in favor of tariffs. They should have never ended in favor of the income tax system in 1913. The response to tariffs has been fantastic." First of all, when Rupert Murdoch's newspaper is running a story calling the trade war the dumbest trade war in history, then no, the response to the tariffs has not been fantastic. And as for why people are against them, Trump says it's because they're controlled by China. Let's think about this for a second. If this was really about being in bed with China, then why is the solution to that punishing American citizens who are the ones bearing the brunt of tariffs? After all, that's how this works. Tariffs are a tax not on the foreign country, but on the importing company. And of course, the importing company isn't just going to eat higher costs, they're going to pass those costs onto the consumer, meaning it's a tax not on the foreign countries, but on us, on Americans. Hell, even some Republicans are beginning to acknowledge objective reality as it relates to these tariffs. Rand Paul took to Twitter writing, "Tariffs are simply taxes. Conservatives once united against new taxes. Taxing trade will mean less trade and higher prices." Although I gotta say, if Rand Paul was truly against trade wars, he probably shouldn't have voted for the guy who was promising trade wars, and who already engaged us in a trade war during his first term in office. Or how about Mitch McConnell?
What about tariffs against our allies?
It will drive the cost of everything up. In other words, it'll be paid for by American consumers. I mean, why would you want to get in a fight with your allies over this?
Although, again, it is worth noting now that McConnell refusing to whip votes to convict Trump at his impeachment trial, or vote himself to convict Trump, is why we are now in a position where we're in a trade war with our allies. If McConnell is looking for the person at fault in all of this, he might want to consult a mirror. But still, the reality is that it's not just Trump who owns this trade war. It's the entire GOP. It's the entire GOP that conned Americans into thinking that they ever gave a shit about high prices, all so that they could take power and do the polar opposite of what it was that they promised. And now that it's not just Americans writ large who will be hurt, but specifically their own voters, their own supporters, their own red states, it's no surprise that Trump caved. Unless, of course, getting a fentanyl czar was the big plan all along. So beware of any Republicans who are genuflecting at the altar of Trump. They know this isn't a win. Trump knows this isn't a win, and the White House knows this isn't a win. They'll pretend because they're only interested in the optics of victory, but if the facts mattered at all, they'd be the first to admit that Trump got played. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.